507. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
Hey, hey.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week we're taking a break from our normally scheduled game reviewing and ranking that we've been doing during Season 11 to discuss speedrunning. We'll talk its history, where it is today, and some of our favorite speedrunning memories and more. Of course, that's all to coincide with the start of Summer Games Done Quick 2023, which just started yesterday. More on that in a bit. I would like to know, Mark, what is the first video game you felt proud to show someone your ability in?
My ability in... Huh.
When did you first call a brother or a mother over to the TV to say, look what I can do?
Maybe it's because of the subject of the show, but whenever my friends would come over to hang out after school or something, I had a thing where I would always, pop on Sonic Adventure 2 on my GameCube, and I would just run through some of the, only the Sonic stages.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done them so much that I would just, know all the, quickest, efficient ways, almost, to, basically S-rank the level every time. Or at least get close. I don't think I was that good, but it was enough to where, there wasn't many pauses in my momentum. And it just felt
that
good.
was just repetition, just playing it over and over again, getting to know the game that intimately?
Yeah. But, yeah, I would say I was definitely proud of that. The City Escape level, the Metal Harbor, and the Jungle were, the three I played the most.
Matt, how about you?
My instinct goes to sports games, like NHL and FIFA, but I'm trying to think there's something predating that. And I can't think of anything, so we're going to stick with that answer.
What specifically about, was it having a 20-point baseball game, which doesn't happen in real life? But
I don't think it was ever... it was never a, oh, hey, come watch me do this. It was always, competition amongst friends.
Yeah.
And not every game, but most sports games, I think I was better than my core group of friends. So yeah, I guess that. Yeah. Just through a competition, it wasn't I don't know. I can't think of anything unless there was some dumb combo in Tony Hawk. But I was never that good at those games. At least back then.
Does recording a video count?
Yeah. I was kind of I figured maybe there would be stories from being super young before we had the ability to do that. But yeah, is there anything you?
Because I only ever done one. It was a one-time thing. Me and my buddy Alex, when Guitar Hero 2 came out, we did a lot of co-op in that, or verses, and it got to a point where we did one of the easier songs. I think it was Cherry Pie.
Okay, yeah.
We had it to where we were sitting next to each other and we were doing pro face-off. So because before verses you would take turns playing parts of the song, but this time you played the whole song all the way through, and on expert, I believe. And so he had flipped his guitar to where he's playing left-handed. So he's strumming with his left hand. I'm strumming with my right, but I'm hitting his notes on his guitar, and he's hitting my notes on my guitar. And we played the whole song together.
Wow.
Just crisscrossed or whatever.
Did this
Pretty
hit
impressive.
YouTube back in 2006?
The video is still up there.
Ah.
Yeah. I think it's on his channel, I believe.
I'm going to go digging for it. Guitar Hero was definitely an opportunity to show off like that. As soon as you, yes, that was fully look what I can do. Yeah, I feel like I remember doing it a bit with Tetris, just getting to the later stages in Tetris for NES where the colors change, because colors changed each like level you reached, and hitting a point where it was like a color scheme we hadn't seen before was always impressive. But I think even simple stuff like figuring out that you can duck on the white blocks in Super Mario 3 to fall behind the stage and run, behind the credits or whatever.
Didn't know it was a specific color. I just thought it was just like random. Huh.
Yeah, it's the white blocks in those stages. But you could do that and then, find secrets. And that was always one where it was like, check this out. And then Tony Hawk, kind of the opposite of being good at the game. My brother-in-law used to lose his mind watching us bail in Tony Hawk. So just like anytime you would just eat it and blood would go flying and you'd hear like the real good, like, it would, yeah, it was impressive. So we would kind of do that. The bails were fun to do to get the reaction. Getting the reaction is what speedrunners do, or maybe not. Maybe it's more than the reaction. I think people speedrun games for a lot of reasons. We are going to dive a little bit into the history right now, so kick your feet up, sit back, and enjoy a tale as old as 1993. While speedrunning has existed in many forms as a challenge to play video games as quickly as possible, it was really in 1993 where it got its start. There were simple scoring challenges, right? You'd see them in arcade games. You would see the ability to put in a high score, put in your initials, and have other people find your high score and try to beat it. But once those games left the arcade and came home, you couldn't really show off those high scores unless it was, a mom or a sibling or someone else within arm's reach that somewhat gave an interest. So then you'd have early opportunities where maybe chasing fast times for completion would arise. And these would happen often in magazines. You could take a picture of your television screen, submit photographs to some publication, and then win an award. But it would then be the internet and the video game Doom that gave speedrunning its origins in the form we recognize today. Doom, and really id, developing Doom, allowed players to record and play back gameplay using a custom file type called .lmp, or colloquially known as lumps. These lump files could be shared with other players who could then import and view your exact gameplay recording, and players would try to beat one another's record times. id carried that feature forward into Quake during its release in 1996, and the feature led to the creation of Nightmare Speed Demos, a website where users could track Quake speedruns. A few months after the site's inception, a speedrun demo called Quake Done Quick was released to showcase high-level movement techniques for playing Quake fast. At its 1-year anniversary, the site would merge with another to create Speed Demos Archive. The site remained dedicated to Quake for 5 years, but its founder, Nolan Radek's blog, uploaded a 100% speedrun of Metroid Prime in 2003. And within 6 months from that upload, the site would begin to accept runs from any game. So the site became the main influence in the creation of today's Games Done Quick, which most people familiar with speedrunning likely learned about speedrunning from Games Done Quick. And since 2010, GDQ, as it's known, has been running twice annual marathon runs that encourage donations from audience members, and the event usually does showcase players running through games as quickly as possible in a big marathon fashion, one after the other. And it's grown quite exponentially large since its beginnings a little while ago. But it all kind of started with Doom. It all kind of started with Quake and the fandom around that, and it was inevitable that we'd get to that point, but it's funny that everything always comes back to Doom or Quake, right?
Pioneers.
Truly. Separately from its history, is there anything else either of you know of its history that you want to add, or questions or comments before we jump into some of the specifics of?
No.
No, I just think it started from a really cool idea. You know, like it was. I don't know. Like I feel like some things are like based on like happy accidents or something like that. I feel like this was just a chain of just cool shit turning into even more cool shit.
Yeah, and I omitted the other part of the other side of the speedrunning community, which was the cheating.
That's what I did want to.
You did want to talk about?
No. That's what I was gonna say, and that's why I was. Nah, we're good.
No, we can go into it. Why not? It's part of it. So there's the tool-assisted speedrun is a thing. Now, often today, especially if you watch games done quick, you'll see that a lot of runners will use tool-assisted speedruns to figure out really what a game can do. But, you know, they're not doing it and submitting it as their record time. You should be playing it. And these days, with the way that speedrunning goes, games, you can set records for speedruns or participate in speedruns in every imaginable combination of things. And there's ways to track and log all of that stuff if you have one particular preference of playing a game. So if there was a game released on 360 and PS3 and PC, there are records set for each of those. There's 100% completion runs. There's also any percent completion runs where you just kind of get to the end as quickly as possible. Every game has sort of these determined endings, so to speak. Like you're watching games done quick, or any speed run, you'll hear the runner or someone commentating say, hey, time is going to come up when blah, blah, blah happens. And sometimes time might happen as a cutscene still playing. Sometimes time might happen once, whatever, but usually it happens in, tandem with the player no longer providing any input to the game, where runs will usually start with the player's first input to a game. These tool-assisted speedruns kind of, before it was easy to challenge the validity of someone's run, you'd often, or at times, have people who would upload videos of tool-assisted speedruns, which, when I say that, I know I'm kind of saying that as if it's an understood term, so let me define it. A tool-assisted speedrun is a program that can basically just input in minimal number of button presses whatever commands you'd need to input to get through a game as quickly as possible. It's more complicated than that. I'm being reductive a little bit just to, illustrate the point. But yeah, it's software that can play through a video game for you, so it can find optimal routes and all of that stuff. It's one way to approach, but we'll talk a bit in a second about some other ways that runners approach learning a game. But in terms of cheating and where that came into it, I think a big reason why you did have communities spring up that wanted to track the authenticity of runs is because you had, especially with the internet being in its nascent days, you had people who would start to share things and be dishonest with what they were sharing and what they claimed they could do. So now there's a lot of checks that go into place, even prior to Taz runs being submitted and found as fraudulent. The submission process in the early days of the Speed Demos archive was a little weird, where Twin Galaxies, if folks are familiar with the King of Kong documentary, you might be familiar with Twin Galaxies. But previously it would be, they would send tapes into Twin Galaxies, or people who did runs, you'd send your tapes in there. Twin Galaxies would assess them and then feed the records to Speed Demos archive, who would update the record boards per game. And in its early days, Speed Demos archive there was no leaderboard for Quake. It wasn't like, here's the top 10 runners, or here's the 622 people who've run this game. It would be, here's the record for Quake, period. That's it. There was no second place. There was no 100th place. It was just that. Now, if you go and you look, there's a couple different runner archive sites where you can view bests of per game, per platform, per everything. And you usually will find anyone who has submitted a time ends up on that leaderboard. So if there's 10,000 people who've submitted a time, 10,000 people will be on that board. The other side of learning how to run a game, I think, is something that's pretty interesting. obviously, right, like the key to anything in life, this is just some life advice out there. If you're listening and you're feeling down and you need a little pick me up and you just feel like you're not getting anything done, here's the secret to success. Keep going. You just keep going. You keep doing it over and over again. And the more you do something, the more it will become habit, the more that it will become you. And that's all there is to speedrunning, right? So if you want to get good at Sonic, just play Sonic a whole lot and then see the best ways to play Sonic and then keep refining, right? Like Mark did not get great at playing City Escape because Mark turned on a GameCube one day. It's because Mark turned on a GameCube 100 days.
2 days, but all right.
2 days.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I remember some of my first exposure to speedrunning was learning about people who broke open the Wind Waker. I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with the Wind Waker running techniques, which honestly have been broken. Even my knowledge on those is outdated. But the first one I remember, do you guys remember, what was the term? It wasn't wave dashing, but it was... someone who knows what this stuff is screaming at...
Sorry, I don't know the Wind Waker.
I
should know it.
I know. But basically, the thing, it's a pocket glitch that happens where if Link is putting something in his pocket as he's falling, and it's frame perfect and all that stuff, which frame perfect, it means that, you know, there's a game runs, right, 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second, whatever. Frame perfect implies that a player must execute a command on a specific frame. So a lot of counting, a lot of math, a lot of timing and rhythm goes into what makes an effective speedrunner as well. But in Wind Waker, if my memory doesn't fail me, it was a frame perfect pocket glitch where you try and use the Wind Waker, the titular Wind Waker, and you do that as Link's falling off of a cliff and pocketing something, and it ends up making Link run backwards. And if you do that above water, it will not trigger what it's supposed to trigger. Link instead just runs backwards at a very high speed across the water. So
that's some Mario 64 stuff right there.
Yeah. You can get around having to use the boat to travel and wait on the wind and all that, and rely on the wind rather for sailing. So obviously that became a pretty common trick. But that one came from someone who was playing the game, recording himself playing so he could go back and, you know, analyze his button inputs and all that stuff. And during the process, screwed something out, was trying to do a different trick and screwed that trick up, but in turn landed on the frame perfect execution and then landed on that weird, he just went shooting backwards and was like, whoa, what happened? So then went back through the recording he was doing to check his button inputs and see exactly what happened when. Thus, it became a new technique. And you often hear of these techniques as discoveries. You'll hear the runners talk about discoveries.
Like, that is probably the most literal sense of wave dashing.
Yeah, that's why my brain keeps going to wave dashing, but it's not that. Yeah.
It's like skipping a rock.
In addition to, I think that part, you know, the thing also that stands out to me around speedrunning is community and the communities that speedrunning has created. In a game like that, you end up having a bunch of people who are all playing the same game together, learning from one another. Now you can't watch a speedrun without hearing the runner end by thanking 15 different handles from whatever, and then saying, you know, be sure to join the something running Discord. And there's a great, you know, there's never been a better time to learn how to start running Quake. Like, it's always, you know, all these communities kind of pop up around all of these games.
But it's from Quake to some obscure fucking Saturn game that I never even heard of, that the Discord has like 5 people in it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, we're talking about Quake, but if you look at any lineup from a games done quick, whether that's the awesome games or summer games done quick, the games that are played, yes, are always
like
the
Tumba.
most popular. Yeah.
Like, who the fuck's playing Tumba anymore? Oh, these 10 people in Discord. I have no idea if it's probably more, but I'm just like, seems so obscure.
There's another thing, like in terms of history and community, during the first live marathon. So the first one was supposed to happen at MagFest, which is the Music and Games Festival, which happens.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was in Maryland. Is it still in Maryland here, or did they move over the line to Virginia now?
I think it's always been at the National Harbor.
Which, yeah, is for those not local.
So
it's kind
I
of
guess that's technically
like DC.
DC.
Yeah, like right in that DC, Maryland, Virginia, Central, whatever. But the first live marathon was supposed to happen at MagFest. At the hotel, a bunch of internet problems arose, so they had to take it to one of the hosts or the founders' mother's house. They just piled a bunch of people into somebody's mom's house and did the first GDQ. But to me, that stands out as like kind of appropriate for what Games Done Quick has become, because it's just this sort of, I don't know, resilient, persistent bridge between a bunch of different people. I mean, there are people who run, there are people who don't play games. So many people get involved with Games Done Quick these days that it's hard to ignore the power of it.
I'm giving credit where credit is due. Maryland claims the National Harbor.
Well, congratulations, cool. Maryland.
Via nationalharbor.com. Very bottom of the website.
Thank you, nationalharbor.com. Well, now that we've got our background out of the way, let's move into some questions. Have either of you ever attempted a speed run?
Ooh.
I've definitely gone fast through games that I've played before, but I will never say I'm actively timing and really going for segments more so than my curiosity to get through a section fast.
Can you explain segmenting in a video game?
Okay. So it's very easy to see what I'm talking about if you watch any kind of speedrunning stream today, but usually a speedrun is broken down into segments, so that way they can better measure their times and see how they're progressing in certain aspects of the speedrun or not. So a good example would be the recent Resident Evil 4 remake. Probably good segmenting of that would be between chapters and or boss battles. So you might get 2 segments for most people within a chapter or whatever. But it's pretty much like the time from you start the game to you clear the first village, and then you segment that time, and then that's your personal best of that segment, but your actual game time keeps going on, and it's just a good way to easily measure how you're progressing speedrun wise, whether you're doing good, you're doing bad, whatever. But it's just a good measurement of where you are comparatively to where you were, or again your personal best, or against the world or whatever. But yes, it's much easier. It's a nice cleaner. It's very clean to see on a stream nowadays.
And they're usually broken down, or rather, I should say, the runner is usually intimately aware of the splits in a way that they know that if they did or did not make, a record over their last time, okay, well, I can make it up in the next section, or they know, well, run's over, not even gonna, in a marathon setting, that doesn't usually happen there, or it doesn't happen. They just go all the way to the end no matter what. But if you watch those runners training for a marathon or something, then it's usually.
And that's another term I guess we should throw out there, because we might say like a marathon safe run versus a world record run. There are differences in how those are approached. So you don't take all the risk in the world to potentially screw up your run. Especially because there's some games that the world record time is about 30 minutes. There are others that are about 10 hours long. And I'm looking at you, Final Fantasies. So yeah, there's a difference between going for a world record and something that is 10 hours long and fucking up something 4 hours in and having to restart or reset, versus at a marathon where you can't just reset 4 hours in and then complete the game. So that's another kind of term and differentiation between types of runs when it comes to speedrunning.
Yeah. Mark, is there anything you ever came close to speedrunning? I guess Sonic Adventure 2?
Not in the legitimate sense. I'm just a very impatient person when it comes to games, so if it's something that I've played a lot before, I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, I already know this part. I just try to get through it as fast as I can. So it's never in like a recording my time sense. It's just more in a, I just want to get through it. I think I did that a lot with, well, yeah, because I don't know like many tricks. I don't know any glitches or anything like that really to get through things. Maybe way back when I would play Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, I just played that so much. It's already a short game. Like, you can complete that game in less than half an hour. But just knowing when, like, I guess knowing like the hitboxes or whatever,
yeah,
does kind of help. And hitting the buttons faster definitely helps. And just knowing like the animations of all the enemies and how they move and all that. So I never thought about it in that sense of like it's me speedrunning. It's just at least not in a sense where I would, record my time or segment or what have you. Not trying to set a record. I just wanted to zip through it, just to zip through it.
Is there a game that you feel like you could do well at, or one that you've always thought about? Like, boy, if I were gonna speedrun something, I could do well at this.
I think my attempt would be Hotline Miami.
Oh yeah, that's a good one for you.
And I might have tried before, because like the first one, I feel like I can beat kind of quick, but there's still tricks to that game that I have no way of pulling off just yet.
Yeah. Matt, what about you? Is there a game you think you would do well at?
I don't know. I don't know if there's one I would do well at. I think there are games where I would be more committed to it because I like it so much.
Sure.
Like I could see me trying to beat Metal Gear Solid 1 pretty quickly. I was doing some of that for Resident Evil 4, the newest remake. I was doing some playthroughs as fast as I could. I mean, nothing comes close to what the record is now, but, just seeing like sub 4 hour times, it was kind of, I was like, oh, all right, that's kind of fast. But no, I don't think there's one good thing that I would consider myself like really good at. I can't sit down and focus on one game for that long.
Yeah, no, not at all. I always thought that I would be able to do the Castlevania games. I think that I would do well at them, but then I watch people run those games and I see the specifics they have to complete in order to, execute a perfect run or do well. So I'm like, oh, I won't be able to do that. But the neat thing about seeing some of your games broken open like that and people get through these incredibly difficult or trying games very, very quickly and very efficiently is that I do end up incorporating things I've seen into replays of those games. So like, the thing I remember specifically Castlevania was the first stage in Castlevania 1 on NES. There's a spot where you have to go downstairs and then down the stairs again to the bottom layer where the fishmen jump out, and then you go back up the stairs on the other side. But there's a bat that flies across the screen at the height of Simon's head, and if you time it right, you can jump on the bat, get hit by the bat, and then fall forward and skip that whole bottom section. And I'm not perfect at it, but I can pull it off 9 times out of 10 now after seeing it in a run. And I think those are the things that are neat to pick up on, that they look cool when you pull them off and you feel good when you pull it off.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it till now, but I guess the first Super Mario Brothers kind of makes you have that sense of speedrunning when you find the correct warp pipes to go through to skip half the game. Yeah,
and I mean, you have a pretty healthy amount of time to get through a level, but if you ever get to that point where the level music changes and applies that pressure, there is inherently, and just the fact there's a timer, there's inherently a pressure to go fast.
Yeah. Because everybody felt like they were breaking the game in World 1-2,
Yeah.
go through the ceiling, run across the entire thing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you find the 3 pipes. So it's like, I think that's everyone's first taste of probably speedrunning.
Besides Bonesaw, do you have a favorite speed run that you've watched?
Fuck, I had that answer dialed up for this question for like 3 years. You just make me pivot off of that.
Gotcha.
In his own words, during that run, he said it was more of a let's play than a speed run. So I don't even know what that qualifies.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a Oh, you know what? I don't think it's. I've only seen one run, and when I say watched, I mean I had it on in the background because it's the 6-hour Final Fantasy X run. But there is something, the way that game has been broken down, they have figured out that the game runs off RNG, but you can there's a number of actions, and they use a spreadsheet and a tool that they built online to track the actions that you're doing to then force, like, they know how to manipulate the game based off what they're getting very early on in the game to then manipulate it to get a certain battle, to use Kamari's like certain like ability steal, or his ability steal ability, so that way he has something for a later boss fight and they don't have to farm it out later. Like, they have creatively broke the code to force things that they need like early on, so that way they're doing less farming down the road. It was like incredible to watch, especially that first hour, because they were very much like not talking. When you watch GDQ, there's like usually a panel behind the runner, in case the runner really can't talk, they're focusing, they can kind of talk about the actions that are happening. It was very weird to see them both not talking because they were just relaying the number back and forth. Dude on the couch was inputting the thing into the spreadsheet, and then he was barking what he's going to see like in the next screen. It was wild to see. And then like after they got through that difficult section, they were able to explain it a lot better. And it's crazy how that game has been broken that wide open, and someone figured out, or a group of people figured out how to do that. I would have never known that was a thing.
Yeah, those types of things, it has to start with tool-assisted speedrun, I would assume, right? And then you're tracking things. But yeah, they end up learning how the games are developed in a way, and it's impressive. Mark, you have a favorite from?
I think I don't watch too many speedruns, but there is one that I will catch from time to time on the Easy Allies channel, and their one member, Don, always tries to beat his records in Wave Race 64. So they just call it's its own thing now on that channel, which is called Don versus Wave Race, and
That's good.
He has like each track segmented and everything, so like it like the layout's all there and everything, so he's just constant. And now it's even more achievable for him since I believe that game hit the Switch Online service.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
so he's in it full force now. I think he's in like season 2 of it.
that'd be neat if he ended up doing it in a marathon somewhere.
And runner-up, or I guess honorable mention, from time to time, I'll occasionally catch Dan Salvato, the lead behind Doki Doki Literature Club. He will to speedrun Yoshi's Story.
Oh, that's a good, yeah. I kind of jotted down a few, but Sonic Generations on PC always stood out. I remember watching that one and seeing the dude go flying through the air in one of the 3D Sonic versions of Chemical Plant Zone. And then you're like, dude, you're going way, whoa. And then he just clips through something, and then he ends up like at the final boss, or it's not really the final, but that one was a crazy one just to see like boundary breaking. I think seeing stuff like Blindfolded Punch Out is always impressive, where they have things down to a rhythm, and knowing exactly when to press a button.
Yeah, those blindfold runs in general always just fucking nuts.
Always.
I just close my eyes for three seconds at a Dark Souls game. I don't know where the fuck I am anymore, and I die.
Yeah.
Or like speedrunning a game like Dark Souls with like using a weird obtuse controller like a Guitar Hero
DDR mat,
or
Guitar Hero, like a guitar, like.
Yeah, I can promise you that when Awesome Games Done Quick happens in January in 2024, I promise you that new Armored Core game is going to be played in some fashion, but more than likely with a Guitar Hero controller or
Steel Battalion controller or bust.
Yes. Super Monkey Ball stands out to me as one. I remember seeing that one for the first time, and like if anyone's played Super Monkey Ball, you know the idea is you kind of move the monkey through the stage in its ball, and it's very much like move around this maze, and then you watch a speed run of it and they're like, okay, so what I'm going to do here is tilt the stage forward and then flip my controller so the monkey goes flying through the air, and then we just need to catch it right here. And it's like, how did you even
to tie onto that, because they use the same engine, F-Zero GX, like just watch a speed run of one map from that game, and holy shit.
Yeah. Those are all really impressive. I really like watching the races. So like seeing like Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Blue, and you have two runners doing it side by side. Super Mario World races. Link to the Past is always a fun one to watch. Like 4 people run through that. But I also like games like Sonic 3, where you have multiple playable characters, and someone plays as Sonic, someone plays as Tails, someone plays as Knuckles, and you see who can get to the end the quickest and why each character has strengths and weaknesses. And then lastly, Halo 2 Legendary is so good. So
that
good to watch in the speedrun.
Yeah, I think that's the only way I could even enjoy that mode.
Yeah.
Is by not playing it.
Yeah, just watching someone else do it and do it well.
What about when people speedrun randomizers?
Those are fun too. Yeah. There's A Link to the Past has some good randomizers.
I enjoy the FromSoft, any of those with the randomizers.
Yeah. It's crazy when they do it with Resident Evil as well.
Mm-hmm. I've seen my fair share of Resident Evil runs like that. Like, it's a shame that the new ones, the RE engine doesn't allow it, or they haven't cracked it yet to allow it. But yeah, those old games, just like I'm thinking RE2, you're in the city, first room's just fucking, well, I guess the first street is fucking just liquors everywhere. It's like, all right.
I can't remember if it was the first or second one. I think it's the first one. But it's like you're still in the mansion, but you open like the one door that's like you go to a bathroom, and all of a sudden there's like 2 sharks in there.
Yeah, just floating,
just hanging around.
I also like not only the enemy randomizers, but the door randomizers, and that's especially true in like the Resident Evil, like the mansion. Like you're like remapping the mansion. You have to kind of remember what doors take you where. It's almost like playing the game new without playing it new.
Yeah, and that's a good.
Funny enough, that kind of circles back to Nintendo when you do like a second playthrough of Zelda.
Yeah.
Where like the map is switched around or whatever.
Yeah, all mixed up. Yeah.
That's Master Quest, right? Or is that?
Yeah, or Zelda Quest if you want to call it.
Is there a game during this year's Summer Games Done Quick running this week that you're looking forward to watching?
Oh, I don't remember the lineup.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you. I don't know what the lineup is.
I've got a few I can spit out. I shot you guys the schedule in chat. But I'll run down. The things that stand out to me, so just a quick glance earlier, was Luigi's Mansion. They're doing a 100% race. I don't think I've seen Luigi's Mansion run in a race fashion before, so that should be interesting. Suzuki Bakuhatsu, which is also known as Suzuki Explosion. Not sure if you guys are familiar with this game, but you play as Ms. Suzuki, who goes about her day, but everywhere she goes, bombs turn up that she has to disarm. It's a PlayStation 1 puzzle game that's just filled with FMV cutscenes, and it's absurd and weird and pure fun and cool, and seeing that in a speedrun, I think, is going to be a good time. Halo 3 Legendary stands out as something I want to check out. Of course, Batman Forever on the Sega Genesis is going to be a unmissable event. And then this one seems crazy. Kaizo Monkey Ball. So.
Oh, that's a dangerous word to put next to anything.
Yeah, Kaizo usually intensifies gameplay, but Monkey Ball specifically, because Monkey Ball has been one of my favorite runs to watch, seeing it done in a Kaizo run, I think is going to be intriguing.
So, 2 games stand out to me where I'm curious to see how that could even be speedran. Peggle. It's like, how do you speedrun Peggle unless you know the physics well enough, right? Like, I have no idea how you even...
I bet you there's optimal runs for that. There's exact precise angles you have to hit. There's got to be that, right?
Yeah. Step Mania is the other one. Like, rhythm games, I'm interested, like, how do you speedrun a rhythm game?
Yeah, that I'm not sure. That's...
So, yeah, like... So I would be, like, it piques my interest just to see how it's done.
Yeah, those will be intriguing.
Yeah, but definitely Luigi's Mansion. Like, I like that idea a lot. And I just like Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
It's kind of, so this kind of transitions me to something I want to talk about, but I mean, Batman Forever on Sega Genesis is on this list.
Yeah, that's a must.
I was gonna say, and Hitman 3, I believe that's the freelance. Oh, it's a freaking. Oh, I didn't realize that was a freelancer campaign. Hitman 3 campaigns, if you ever seen a speed run, are nuts. They literally walk into a room, look up, precisely aim 3 fucking floors up and take out a dude and walk away. Like, it's nuts how that's done. But no, I want to say some of my favorite speed runs from SGDQ are the games that like break. Like, there's no end. The end is when they finally break. And I think of 2 specifically, like Sneak King, that Burger King game.
Yeah.
It becomes a buggy fucking mess by like the 3rd level, so like it's kind of go until it crashes pretty much. And then speaking of which, Batman Forever, if I might be remembering this wrong, but I believe the game cannot be completed on co-op because there's some kind of bug at the towards the end of the game, or there's a mechanic that can't happen.
That sounds right.
So like when that's done co-op, that's always fun. That was fun to watch.
That might be version specific. I can't remember if that's like but yeah, you're right. Too much fun.
Oh, it's a shame that was the Twin Snakes. The Metal Gear Solid is always a good run, and then of course, I don't know what else they've found. I kind of taken my foot off the pedal a little bit with the Elden Ring speedrun watching, but I see they have a glitchless any % on there, so I'm curious.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one.
I'd be curious how they what new strategies they've picked up since I've last watched, probably like last year.
You mentioned Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, and that's kind of like adjacent to Metal Gear Solid 2, which we reviewed for Season 10, but of the other games we reviewed between Season 10 and 11, there's a few that are going to be at GDQ this year. So if you've listened to an episode and you've been like, that game sounds neat, now you can watch it run. Mark mentioned Peggle Deluxe is going to be there. The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap will be there. Sonic Frontiers, which we just did this year, going to be there. And Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg is
want to kick this all off.
Oh, of course it would.
Sometimes you got to build the foundation of a list first, you know?
Yep.
Sometimes you got to break a few eggs. What?
In fairness, so if you're listening to this at any point in the future, but especially right as it launches, Sonic Frontiers and Minish Cap have already happened, as have Luigi's Mansion. If you're listening to this bright and early, congrats to you. In a few hours, Suzuki Bakuhatsu is going to be played, so check that one out. But Billy Hatcher is happening at 9:13 in the morning on Saturday, June 3rd. So it's kind of, you can get through your week. You can wake up Saturday morning with a nice bowl of cereal and hot cup of coffee and sit down and enjoy some good morning over and over again.
Jeez, I forgot about that till you brought it up.
Well, that's speedrunning in a nutshell. It's beginning, it's ending, it's future. Check out Games Done Quick this week. You can also usually, you can always donate to Games Done Quick, but you pay close enough attention, you can donate and usually get some incentive back. So besides just seeing your name go up on the screen, or potentially hear your name and your donation read on the air, they might do incentive bonuses. So during this next 2 hours, if we raise $10,000, then we'll have a bonus game played. Or if you donate in the next hour, you can choose to put your money towards one of 3 prizes, that kind of stuff. Check that stuff out. Yeah,
not even only the bonus games, but like the showcases after the fact, like some of those glitch showcases or stuff like that from the game that's being run. The runner will take like 15 minutes and either do like I don't know, sometimes there's like a DLC that they'll run through real quick, or they'll just showcase a bunch of the dumb shit they found that they're not really applying to the speedrun itself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a bunch of that. You can help name a character. I'm sure there's a number of Zelda games. Link gets renamed in a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be good names to pick for Link.
Yeah. Usually it ties into whatever meme is happening that week, so whatever stupid thing is floating around the internet right now, that's likely going to be Link's name this week. We'll find out. Well, stay tuned for Speedrunning and stay tuned for the Free Cheese Podcast to return in another week as we kick off June with our first game Dev Story. We'll be back with that next week. Until then, let us know what games you're good at speedrunning. Podcast at thefreecheese.com. Tell a friend about the Free Cheese Podcast, and then you get the satisfaction and reward of sharing something great with someone you love. Until next time, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Goodbye.